So there we are. Hello and warm greetings to all. I am Radagast, your friendly Telestic and Rome. So thank you for the compliment, Meandering Mystic. What I want to say, I found the thumbnail, but the layout and the graphics was done by our friend in New Zealand, Enjoy Being. And Enjoy Being is the name of his YouTube. Hello, Tamu. Let me greet people before I get going here. So, hello, Madfinger, Meandering Mystic, Jasmine Emmerich, and Tamu Nagina, Priestess Heart 108, and peace to you as well. So according to my thing, oh, okay, it just upgraded. It started out with 2 watching, now it says 8. Yeah, Enjoy Being. So I hope I'm heard okay. I'm using a new desktop mic stand because I was using that boom, and I want the boom to go downstairs so I can use it for my rehearsals and other things. And so I had to start a few minutes late. I didn't want to really reschedule it for later. I had a feeling I wasn't going to quite make it. I had to do my little pre-show rituals. Hello, Deborah. Wanted to do my little pre-show rituals, which I always do before certainly the Gnostic live streams, but usually the Mystic, the ones that I was kind of in between the old Can't You Hear Me Gnostics and now Telestic transmissions. I was using the Mystic Brew as kind of like a placeholder. Oh, thanks for joining us, Foxadre. But now it's Telestic transmissions, and it's part of improving the aim. That's why it's Telestic. Telestic comes from the telestai, those who are aimed, which is what the quote-unquote Gnostics called themselves. Gnostics was a pejorative term used by the uninformed others because to say that you are carrying on a tradition and that you know something about the earth and the cosmology that we're involved in, especially amongst the newer schools of thought that kind of start with the law and nonsense like that. So anyway, yeah, Gnostic was kind of like basically a Greek term of know-it-all. Oh yeah, they think they know. It was only tens of thousands of years, or at least a few thousands of years of accumulated gnosis being applied and checked with each other, and that formed itself into a coherent understanding. But that was not appreciated. So Gnostic is a pejorative term by competing schools of thought. And basic, I guess it's kind of what they were called before they were called heretics. And of course, heresy comes from a Greek word, heresai, or sai is the ending, which meant to choose, and that's what it originally means, is to choose. But when the law came in and there was only one proper choice, hello Ainsley, when there was only one proper choice, then choice became what now has been interpreted as heresy, or the wrong choice. So, but most, I'm quite sure most Telestics and Rome already know that. And that's what I'm going to try and really aim better in the future and speak to those who are aimed. And if that costs me subscribers, that's okay. I would consider that detoxifying. I've already lost, since the last stream and this one, I've lost about 7 subscribers. And it actually feels cleansing. And you know, it's it's kind of like almost like performing, in a band. You want people who like what you're doing, who understand what you're doing. And the whole trick is that there's when you live stream, generally speak, for most, it's free. So when it's free, even those who may not be interested might be bored and decide to visit. Where when you charge at the door for a band, if somebody doesn't like a band, they're certainly not going to fork out any money to go hear a band they don't like. So rather than my digital tempura playing tonight, I'm just playing the kind of the crickets and what sounds like it might be raining again a little bit. And as long as the cats don't start their caterwauling, we should be in pretty good shape. I did write down some things, but I just kind of need to warm up a little bit. Boy, I didn't want to do a stream tonight, but I wasn't going to put off another week. I kind of fix my hair, and the Florence, the weather event, just kind of cleared out about 6 o'clock this morning my time, and it was quite an interesting ride. A fair amount of wind here, but not too bad. A lot of people were working with Florence, and I certainly did what I could before she got here, kind of offering suggestions of how to go through this area, because suggestions, or in many ways instruction, or even command, is part of being a Gnostic shaman. Hello, Niche. So when something as ferocious as storm is coming, it's good to do a little Gnostic shaman work, or Telestic shaman. That's the whole thing. That's why I actually, there are a lot of kind of different concepts of Gnostic, like, Miguel Connor kind of considers himself Gnostic over at Aeon Gnostic Bites, but he referred to the Earth as this crappy little planet. So clearly there are Gnostic, and then there I guess what are called Christian Gnostics, so basically the Gnostics, this is Planetary Tantra Gnostics, Rome, Telestai, Anthropos, and who do not think they live on a crappy little planet. We lived in a fucked up world, but the Earth is absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, and wise in every way you can imagine. So anyway, but my rose bush that had been part of the echo side here back when I had roommates, a really incredible rose bush, put out a rose earlier on. I thought it was too late in the season, because roses usually bloom a little bit earlier, but it put out 2 buds, and one of them came out just as the storm was really kicking up. And they put out I'm going to show it to you in a moment, but the stems were kind of tall, and then the buds were at the top of the stems, and I was really concerned that they might not make it. So I'm going to go into my real-time camera so I can see what I'm showing you, and show you there was 2 roses. One of them, the one that hadn't blossomed as much and was on a slightly bigger support system, I let weather the storm. The other one I brought inside with me, and it has an exquisite scent. Yeah. Yes, so here she is. So now I can go outside for a sniff, and I have one inside. Without the vibrancy of the earth feeding her, her scent is not quite as great. Plus she's in some regular. We have very good water here. I probably should have put a little bit of crumpled compost in there, but I never got around to that. Anyway, back to the live stream. Hello, Mari. Oh, and MC Wizard. I did not greet you. I do now. Oh, that's right. I had. Where are I? Where did it? Okay, so I'm a little discombobulated this evening, just a little bit, but no biggie. Oh, that's right, live. I don't need to do that. So I'll go back here, go over here. So glad you could make it, Niche. I haven't seen you for a little bit. I think part of the reason my mic sounds a little muted is I have a sock over it. I guess I can take the sock off while I'm trying to protect it from dust. So let's see if that made a difference. Oh, I see what's happening. I have it backwards, I think. Is that it? Oh, yeah. Okay, let me... It really would help if I was speaking. I think this is the active side of the mic. So let's see if that helps. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think I have it's very good to protect these really good mics from dust getting in them. So I put an old sock over it. Okay, so that's what it was. It was backwards, but because the sock was over it, I couldn't tell what was front or back. And it seems to be secure. Very good. All right, thank you for the feedback from the live stream. So it's really I'm trying to okay. I have bad video settings apparently. I did double my my bandwidth at a considerable cost. I think when I go down there to pay my bill, I'm going to say I want to go back to the old one. It's not like I got an improvement. On my limited funds, I'd like to go for the economy setting. But that's don't need to get personal here. So it's just really interesting, listening to all the, the various live streams that I guess people that call themselves, the truther community, conspiracy, I guess is one of the terms. Truther community. Those who are looking for the truth. And there's a connection between truth and love. What happens is you're looking for love in all the wrong places. And I think part of you want to. I feel our intellect and our feelings should be in some kind of concordance. But there's kind of so you want to me how you feel about what one thinks how one's logic system works. You want your logic and your feelings to be in accordance, and occasionally, sometimes you'll have to do things logical that really don't feel so great, but they really make a lot of sense. There can be some ambivalence, but you're aware of the ambivalence, and then to me, you should opt for looking into how that develops or how it feeds one is important. And of course, there's a lot of there's a lot of speaking of occult. And what is a cult? What is occulted? What does that really mean? And so I have a few things written down that I just kind of warm up to. I'm still kind of waiting for the spirit of the transmission to reach into me. I said I pushed myself to do the stream tonight because sometimes we set ourselves on schedules, and every once in a while one's schedule and what one wants to do aren't always in accordance. But there's a certain sense of duty showing up, and meeting reasonable expectations. Like, you basically have a weekly live stream you do, so it's reasonable for people to expect for you to do your live stream. Hello, RC. And so anyway, but I want to get the Telestic transmissions ball rolling, and if you look in the descriptions, I've loaded it up. I've actually added 2 new things into the description, and one of them is a link to the Kalika War Party page, and then the last one is the new the School of Sophianic Arts and Sciences of Nemeta.org. Right now, if you go to there, at least the last I checked, it's basically to sign up to the mailing list. Content will be forthcoming. And waving from Southwest Virginia, RC. And so actually, I would like to get back to just for a second, to the creator who helped me so much with creating the thumbnail for Telestic Transmissions. He had sent me something. I mean, out of the blue, he sent me he knew I was working on something. You're welcome, Meandering Mystic. And he had sent me something, and it was really quite delightful. And had a great feel to it. But I had this one, with coming out of the earth and the light and a little bit of the beacon kind of thing going there. Oh, excellent, Deborah. Thank you for that information. So anyway, so I sent him the picture, and then I kind of told him where I wanted it, and by the fifth back and forth, it was done. Got it done in a few. And what's funny, when he sent me his original concept on it, I've been struggling a little bit. The constant meeting new financial requirements since I got the house myself has just been a little bit of a drag on me. I will be getting that remedied. At least that is the intent. And so with intent usually will come the fulfillment of that intent. So it came in, and I was like, let me just look at it. And I looked at it, and I went, oh, this is nice. But I was like, oh, should I respond? And then it's like, something really strong inside me said, let's get this finished. And I did respond to him. Unfortunately, he responded to me. I think he took a nap in between things, or not, maybe not. I said, because again, I do a fair amount of email communication with Enjoy Being, and he has a YouTube channel under that name, Enjoy Being, and he put out a really beautiful video, Rambling Road it's called, and part of it is him driving to the New Zealand coast and him speaking extemporaneously, but very very inspired extemporaneous speech. And so I recommend it. It was just a, first of all, quite beautiful visually, and very thoughtful. And then it ends with some music. In many ways, it's like a short documentary of sorts. I mean, I've been to some of the back when before I realized just how toxic Hollywood is and was, but it's become more toxic. Just like people eat more junk food today, well, the entertainment industry has kept up with the decreasing quality in what people consume. But I remember, so it ran a little bit over an hour, and but I remember, and then the way it closed, the way the music and the visuals, it was like a little like art and cinema, and it was really impressive for somebody basically doing it on an iPhone. And but he's very much involved with art. He got involved with all the Lord, the Lord of the Rings or the Middle Earth productions that have largely went on in New Zealand for years. First with the Lord of the Rings, and then the Hobbit movies, and he was part of set design. And so it's kind of cool. He got into that mix, and that's a pretty big quote unquote industry in New Zealand these days. Is the Lord of the Rings and the legacy of those films having been done there, and then the amount of artisans that were required to make that happen, and he's one of those artisans. I'm glad you agree, Meandering Mystic. Moose can't join us in whatever form because he has a power outage where he is, and so he is missed in the stream, at least from my opinion. And I would think that most of the people who come to this stream have some appreciation for Raksha. So the aim, Telestic. One of the important things about aim is identifying, depending on what you're aiming at, but let's use the metaphor of a journey. Well, the aim generally is to get to a destination. But also part of a journey is the journey itself, the things that happen in the accomplishment towards, as one works towards their destination. Very often, the journey is the most important part of getting to the destination, because there are a lot of skills that are required or are developed on the road to the destination. And then the other thing when it comes to aim can be the concept of targets. In a world ruled by psychopaths, in many ways the world is a target-rich environment. And this is where aim becomes, and defining the journey and targets is important, because when one looks at the comments, either left after videos are done or in the chat, very often targets seem to be either the person doing the stream or putting up the video, or people who put their thoughts, or we'll call it thoughts, will be nice, into comments and live stream chats. So sometimes you'll see acrimony occasionally, especially in comment sections, but you'll see it in live stream chats too, where you'll see where the targets are each other. That is really fucking stupid and misguided. Really fucking stupid. It's clueless is what it is. It is not logical, especially in the world with the fuckery going on. It is highly illogical, but it's very much about feelings. And the offense culture that we currently live in, being offended. And the sad thing about this offense culture, it isn't about one's intellect or intelligence has been insulted, one's feelings have been insulted. And that's really quite sad, because again, we need a lot more operative intelligence going on. And once again, intelligence, once we have logical thoughts to work with, we can ask our feelings for their input. How do we feel about all this? And you want to know. You do not want to just do cold logic, but you want logic. And so much of the offense culture, again, is not about people's intelligence being insulted. It's about their feelings being hurt or insulted. Sad state of affairs. But those who are aimed, the Telestai, are looking for wisdom. So in the pursuit of wisdom, if people call names, it's like, well, you got to consider the source, for one thing. That's one of the things I've done throughout my life, is often when, quote unquote, an insult is hurled, let us look at who hurled the insult. And then very often, there's no sting. Because, and then very often your intellect can see, oh, somebody's I said something that hurt somebody's feelings, their feelings, not their intellect, and now they're reacting. And they react with remarks. And so it can get very silly. And I see a lot of silliness online. A lot. Although it's kind of disheartening, it is informative. It is data. It's it's like taking a temperature of a patient. That was a good one, Matt Finger. But that's sometimes what will I kind of from a holistic with a W or looking at homeostasis. What is the health of any given community? And then, the online community is a huge community. And when one looks at the discourse, it could be depressing. Hello, expanding the process. I'm glad you kind of brought up the Tao. The Tao, the wisdom of the Tao is not the same as it was before. In other words, Taoism isn't the same after Maoism. There was a lot of adjustments made by Taoists to stay alive. The great leap forward. Once again, when you're dealing with psychopaths, generally whatever is said by them, the opposite is how it should be interpreted. And I think I might need to go out of the chat for a little bit. So if anybody new comes in, I will greet them when I come back and look at the chat. Okay. I will miss the funny remarks, but I want to stay as calm as possible. Somebody not doing the speed limit. And the speed limit, of course, is a suggestion. And I find in most cases speed limits are good suggestions, although they call them laws. This is a residential neighborhood. The faster one travels through a neighborhood, the louder the road sound is. And so like somebody driving at the 25 mile an hour, or just even 5 mile, add 5. Somebody going by, it's relatively quiet. Add 10 or 15 to that, and you starting to get close to highway sounds. One of the reasons you can hear highway sometimes from miles away, the roar of the highway is the roar of tires traveling at 55 miles an hour and plus. But I went off topic. The intellect is a kind of almost like a surgeon's knife of sorts. And it is not to be more important than wisdom. Wisdom is the goal. Sophia or Sophia means wisdom, our planet is the embodiment, our Earth is the embodiment, the literal embodiment of wisdom. Our bodies are metaphors and real, physical representations of wisdom. Interestingly, even the Aleister Crowley quote, do as thou wilt will be the whole of the law. Again, the word law is always a red flag to me because much of the fuckery on the planet started with the law, also known as the Torah. Before that, we had the Tao, or the way. Even if it wasn't called that, there was the way of wisdom. So when we look into, let me just finish up on Aleister Crowley. So do as thou will be the whole of the law. So right away, to me, just the use of the word law is a sign that something's wrong. But the next one is love under will. When I look at the chakra system, love is part of wisdom. So that would be the heart chakra. The true higher will is done largely through expressing it and vocalization of what's on, what we have and what we want to communicate with others. So that's the fifth chakra. The heart is the fourth chakra. So in the chakra system, love is under will. But you'd have to know the chakra system and the properties of the chakras to understand that. That's about what I have to say about Aleister Crowley. CW did a pretty good treatment on Aleister Crowley in one or two of his streams back. So I'll let him take the slings and arrows for hitting other people's hero. So back to our bodies as embodiments of wisdom, because they were designed by the wisdom goddess and her partner Thelete, which as qualities, that syzygy is wisdom and intent, or the will. So, within our bodies, a healthy body, we have a properly performing immune system. In real biological, actual medical terms, the lymphocytes that have a very specific and aggressive role, which would be the T killer cells. Well, the T is actually indicating the thymus gland. The thymus gland is located between the heart and the thyroid. The heart is the seat of wisdom, and the thyroid is the higher will. There is a lower will that comes out of our third chakra, kind of an animal form of will. It's not informed by wisdom. The higher will is informed by wisdom because the wisdom speaks through the will. And so the T killer cells gain, and this is a medical term, immunocompetency. So that is, they perform their immune or T killer cell functions competently. And that competence is can be seen in a healthy body. When the competency works, if we look at the yin-yang symbol, competency would be the middle and not either side. one side, and doesn't matter, the color's not as important as the fact that there will be, one side will be deficient and the other side will be excess. So an improperly performing immune system can be deficient, in which case it doesn't really respond to threats, or it can be excessive, where it responds to things that aren't threats and very often attacks the body, the healthy cells of the body. Immunocompetency is knowing that the only thing you want to rid the body of is pathogens, and the competency comes from being able to identify a pathogen. So there's a certain amount, you could say, of warrior spirit in the immune system. In that, basically, if there are no issues, the immune system doesn't do anything. If there's no threat, there's nothing to respond to. A competent immune system responds to threats. When an incompetent immune system, especially in the excessive imbalance, because if there's nothing to attack, well, it just attacks cells, because it's like, we're killer cells, let's kill something. That's not how homeostasis works. I'm still not in the chat at all, so if anybody's responding to me, to what I'm saying, I don't know. There's a certain quality, and it's a term that John Lamb Lash uses, and the word is ruthless. Be ruthless, and being ruthless is part of the Yaqui warrior, or the Don Juan. Please understand that a lot of the planetary Tantra Gnostics get quite a bit of inspiration from the work that Carlos Castaneda put out in his books, and that branch of shamanic sorcery. There's a lot of inspiration there. I wouldn't say to use them necessarily as source books, but they're the Yaqui were pretty adept shamans. So ruthless. The word ruthless could be, in certain way, sometimes can be, they call cold-blooded. To me, that's an error. Just because something is not hot-blooded doesn't mean it's cold-blooded. Because when we look at the yin-yang symbol, that little sine wave in the middle, that's the balance. So cold-blooded would be deficient, and hot-blooded is excess. Ruthless, the word ruth, really is a kind of another word of the form of the word wrath or anger. And so a competent immune system is ruthless. It is without wrath. It is protecting the body. It is protecting the human body from pathogens, things that will hurt the body if their presence remains. And so there isn't, to me, a proper immune system. It is not with some kind of quote-unquote bloodlust. It is ruthless. There is no emotion there. There is identification of something that, left alone, will produce illness in a healthy system. It will destabilize the homeostasis, which is a natural setting. The yin-yang symbol is a symbol of homeostasis. So ruthless is without wrath, without emotion. There's a job to be done. There is a threat. That threat must be responded to, and then homeostasis is back. So ruthless often, again, has this cold-blooded concept to it. To be without anger is not to be cold-blooded. It is to be what we humans are known as is warm-blooded. Wrath is hot-blooded. Not even giving a shit is kind of cold-blooded. So language is very important with regards to terms that we use, so that when we use them, there is some kind of logic and an intellectual way of receiving the words, so therefore they can be received in the third chakra properly, and then the wisdom of them can be pulled out, as opposed to having an emotional reaction or a kind of an emotional triggering because a word that isn't understood properly or connotates something that it isn't will create feelings. If somebody, cold-blooded sounds kind of nasty, and it is kind of nasty in humans, because humans are warm-blooded. Psychopaths, in many ways, could be called cold-blooded, but much of their what they tend to do, interestingly enough, is to rile up the people that they want to do their dirty work and make them hot-blooded. Most of the people, a lot of the people responsible for thousands and millions of deaths on this planet didn't kill a one of them. No, they ordered other people to do the killing. So the cold-blooded, getting one group of people hot-blooded and getting them to kill warm-blooded people. Imbalances. And that's how I really like to understand it was brilliant. Actually, it was a runic. His name is Flowers. Is his last name? He was on the Higher Side Chats was one of them. There was a couple. He's been a few places, but there was one conversation he had that was really brilliant, discussing the yin yang symbol. Although it didn't come up with that. It was kind of about, somebody asked him about evil. And his definition of evil, which to me, in a way, was expressed in the visual symbol of the yin yang symbol, is that evil is either deficiency or excess. If people are starving, especially contrived management of the food system, the evil is their deficiency. Those who have more than they can use is the evil of excess. In a healthy way of looking at it, that could look as consumption and production. So a balance, the proper balance of the sine wave of that middle line separating excess and deficiency, is that consumption and production largely are the same. But we can, in that consumption and production, we can look to Mother Nature herself. She is abundant. She, in many ways, overproduces. There is more produced than needs to be consumed, but that's because there can be loss in the production. And then also there is the whole recycling of what isn't used gets broken down and gets turned right back into the cycle again. So there's no waste in overproduction. in a natural system. There is no waste in producing more than can be consumed. There's no dumpster sitting out in the back of the supermarket of nature to put expired food in. Some of the food, which is still quite edible, but it's past its due date, and we certainly wouldn't want to give it out now, would we? See, there's the evil. There's the evil in an unnatural system, where there is more produced that can be consumed, but there are people who are deficient in their ability to consume because of the money system. And what do people do with the excess? Do they feed it in, put it into the deficiency to balance out the excess and therefore ameliorate evil? No, they toss it and forbid the deficient from having the excess. So now we can see why I was really touched by this explanation of a concept, of kind of putting some idea of what evil is. And ultimately, evil is how we conduct ourselves, what we perform. There is no existential evil. There is an existential error, but no one needs to listen to that error and follow it. But if people do follow the way of error, people, the human species, if it follows error, it will do evil. But it wasn't evil existentially. It's in once again, it's in the doing that evil happens. Okay, I think that's a time for me to take a little break and take a deep breath and see if I've caused any kerfuffle in the chat. Okay, Kalendal has joined us. Hello. Fractal Truth. Hello. I like that, Deborah. JLL calls Castaneda to warm up the PT. Yeah. Hello, Christian Martin. I'm going through the comments quickly to see who I haven't greeted yet. Okay, so now I'm going to read a few. Might not comment, but I'll read them. All right. So, I'm doing okay. Hope everybody listening to the live stream is doing well. I definitely need another sniff of the rose. Oh. The rose is a nice metaphor for me to maybe riff a little bit on the concept of creator and created and the continuity. Nature created the rose. Of course, there's all nature spirits and devas. There's quite a team effort. Hello, Rufus Cat. Quite a team effort in the natural world. And so, not all, a lot of modern roses, and especially ornamental roses, have been, they're hardy, they're prolific, but they have no scent. With those roses. Without a scent. Because what do they say? A rose by any other name will smell just the same. Unless it doesn't have a scent, and then it's a fake rose. So, nature that produced the rose also produced me. Produced us. In the smelling of the rose, thank you, Foxtrot, with the Sadashi shift. In the smelling of the rose, to me, we complete a circuit. We actually create some of the strategy of why would the aeons, why would the intelligences of the universe want to put part of themselves into biological form? Well, because with that, God, if you can presence that aspect, your divine aspect, while you smell this divine creation, you can feed back where the created, with the creator within it, can appreciate what was created in the form of nature. The delight. It's very clear that the aeons created biology for sensuality. Not to be confused with sexuality, because the sensuous quality of a fragrant rose doesn't even make me think of getting a hard-on. It is just delight in using the sense of olfaction, the sense of smell, to apprehend the chemicals, and the way we're designed, that those chemicals that are being released express themselves to us as scent, and quite a beautiful scent. And in a way, that is a completion of the circuit, where when you send it, you can act, it's, where you are aware that you are enjoying part of creation, and you are part of creation, but you're conscious that you are part of creation. And you feed back. You participate as part of the creator that made that rose, but can also appreciate it in a sensual way. There are temples in India, not all temples, but there are certain temples that have just unending, like just walls full of people having sex in all kinds of ways. Two of this gender on one gender, basic genders, all kinds of shapes and whatever. Just this wall. Why? What is the statement being made here? In hundreds of sensual sexual acts, into various forms of penetration, pressing skin against each other, and just the multiplicity. It's just like, the staggering, overwhelming pictorial. What is being said there? Well, I will just interpret what I see there. And part of this, I'll be sharing my own, but I'll also be sharing what John Lamb last shared about the pleroma, the home of the aeons, the galactic center. That what he refers to as the nougat texture of that plasmic center, where it holds the consciousness. We're now learning plasma is consciousness. Even the Keshe work is really showing that up big time. So he has shared in quite poetic terms the seething interactions of the aeons and their various qualities and how they share with each other. And in, the center of the galaxy is this seething consciousness, but it has discrete aspects, and those discrete parts are the qualities. And the two qualities are, we can just deal with right here in the syzygy of the goddess Enthelite, of wisdom and intent. But obviously there are other qualities. To me, a corrupt form of that understanding of the qualities of the pleroma, or maybe a misguided understanding, would be the Kabbalistic tree of life. But we're not going to talk about that. So back to the pleroma. So if you, through a shamanic journey, either to witness or to even partake of it a little bit, and the way that they're coursing against each other and interpenetrating each other, and just in kind of pleromic sensuality of a form. And then I look at one of the temples where there's just hundreds of depictions of sexuality, sensuality, that would seem almost like beyond the need to portray. And what I see in those walls of hundreds, if not thousands of depictions, is a pictorial of somebody who has been to the galactic center, the pleroma, the fullness, has apprehended how the aeons interact with each other, and that these walls of kind of, let's say Kama Sutra type of depictions are in fact the best way somebody could take the information of having been to the pleroma, to the galactic center, having experienced, at least observed how the aeons interact with each other. And based on that experience of the pleroma, that depiction is probably the most concise depiction that I think could be put pictorially. That's my take on those walls with hundreds and at least hundreds of, again, just about every pose imaginable. And if you were, to think of the pleroma, the galactic center, and these streams, discrete streams of plasma that are the aeons, and just intertwining, and in all positions, dipping down, interpenetrating, ripping through, skin, membrane against membrane. Again, just, some of it is interpenetration, some of it is just touching. To me, when I saw that and I got that download, I really saw how beautiful and what an incredible artistic rendition of what it is like to apprehend what is going on in the galactic center with the aeons. And so that's my take on it. Disagreement would hardly be inappropriate. Yeah, I wrote down here, so anyway, Let me take a little bit more. I'm still working on the same cigarette I started the show with. because some people see me lighting up, and they think I chain smoke. I'm still. This is the. I had this. This cigarette was lit actually before the show started, and I've been lighting it, and so I've been smoking one cigarette. The electric universe theory, I feel, has a lot of scientific validity to it, Rufus Cat. I think they're missing some of the mystical aspects of it, but that's okay. Science is a good start. Expanding the process, what I'm saying is that what we might call a wild orgy of depiction is the best way, when being that we're not plasma, of getting into it. Again, the animalistic orgy is, again, that's not what's being depicted. And plasma streams and all these currents of consciousness are sharing and exulting in their being, and then also they have seeded the galaxy with life. The original panspermia that went out, and if you know the Sophianic narrative, and I know the Telestics, you know the Sophianic narrative, there's before the plunge of Sophia, from within the galactic center, they saw that the anthropos aspect of the panspermia was creating some distress. So, which is why when she turned herself into the planet, there had to be like a little tube form, because we needed a new hit of that kind of panspermia. But it was the original output from the galactic center of life seeds, panspermia, that developed into the billions of life forms, including anthropoid life forms that seemed not to be going well, that created distress, and especially distress with the wisdom goddess when she was still in the pleroma, or yes, when from her vantage point in the pleroma. And when I, again, there is great sensual, from interpretation of in the galactic center, but again, it's, imagine currents of water in a coherent, or even think of a hurricane, and what's going on, and as the different currents and moisture and everything is intermingling and sharing the information from it, there's no quote unquote sex there, but there's great exultation and celebration of consciousness, movement, different textures, different qualities. Very possibly, Rufus Cat. But the Earth was, the formation of the Earth was a later development, and it was an anomaly. It wasn't, it wasn't. Certainly wasn't part of the aeonic plan for the wisdom goddess to transform into a planet. And I pick my words carefully there when I say it wasn't an aeonic plan. Maybe I'll stray a little bit into the concept of originator. At the core of the Sophianic narrative, before there were aeons, yes, brain cells, I'll get to that, Roof's cat, good stuff. Before there were aeons, who are the galactic center, there was what is called the originator. John Lash also has shared his visit, shamanic visit to the Pleroma, which very much matches my shamanic journeying to the Pleroma, including some shamanic or, interfacing with the originator. And I like the way he put it, said, if you contact the originator from our perspective, it's boring. My own experience, besides it being somewhat, if you're looking for action, the originator is not where you go. The originator created galactic centers with their aeons to externalize concept qualities and make them beyond concept and make them things, make them plasma. So in many ways, the originator is an observer of its emanations. Aeon is an emanation of the originator. And the aeons are the qualities of, quote-unquote, the gods that live in the Pleromic center. The galactic center, called the Pleroma. Watch my language here. So besides it being kind of, as John puts it, boring, there was also kind of like when I went to the galactic center, cast my consciousness there. There was also the thing of, what are you doing here? You're straying from your domain of agency, which is Earth. It's like, it's kind of like, what are you looking for here? Yeah, you're curious. Okay, good. Now get back to where you belong. It wasn't scoldy or anything. It was kind of like a big kind of duh. What are you doing here? And the other thing, when one looks like the Gnostic intel, the Sophianic narrative is about one galaxy alone, the one we live in, the one that we can kind of see the arms of in the Milky Way. When one looks at depictions of space, once again, I'm picking my words carefully here, one sees countless, like basically uncountable galaxies, each with their own galactic center and groups of aeons. Similarly, they seem to be just floating there, kind of the way a jellyfish or plankton might just seem to be floating in the water. So there's a medium. There's a kind of like this medium. Water is a medium, air is a medium. There's a medium the reason the Gnostics focused on one galaxy is because they were focusing on where it mattered and where our agency is. Human curiosity can get all over the place and then lose itself examining its navel. There's a focus is a form of intent to get things done. If one just wants to meditate all the time, then yeah, exploring all the galaxies, sure. It's one of the things I like, and it's why the Gnostics are not really called Gnostics, but they're called the Telestic, those who were aimed. They weren't all over the place. They had to target. They had a destination. They had an understanding of what their place in the universe was, and it was within a galaxy. The galaxy that one finds oneself in. And especially with the current state of the Earth, and it's been screwed up for a while, the state of the world. If your world is in disrepair, one is meditating into galaxies where we have no agency, that's a little bit silly. It would kind of like being in a country that's in a revolution, and meanwhile we're paying attention to what's going on in other countries when we have a clear and present danger, or certainly a task, in our own country. So that's why Telestic and Telestic practices, to me, are the higher, why I'm in where I'm at in Planetary Tantra. Being a Telestic, one who is aimed, not distracted, looking for where our agency, the agency of the human animal, the human species, where is its agency? It's local. Just like being part of a country, your agency is local. Being part of a land, your agency is local. So the originator, seems, from my own shamanic work, to be everywhere. It is the medium that other manifestations unfold in. Okay, very quickly, the brain cell, when I look at, there's like the general mapping, and then when I look at neurons, there's different, I almost got my book out, but again, I didn't have, there are certain different kinds of nerve cells. Some receive pressure, some receive pain, some receive heat. Like, in other words, if you experience heat, there's a discrete shape of a nerve cell that will tell you something is hot or cold. When it comes to like cutting pain, there is a discrete nerve cell that tells you that. One of the reasons why we'll just call it Novocaine or numbing agents, although you can't really feel cutting and things like that, you can still feel pressure. And that's because whatever that numbing agent is, it affects the nerve endings that can receive pain and other kinds of sensory data, but not the data of pressure. So when I look at the different shapes of galaxies, sometimes what I see is, especially laying in the medium, when I think about the medium of flesh and how the nerve cells are just these various discrete receptors of certain kinds of data are strewn about in our tissue. So what I see in all those different galaxies, and some of them having different forms than others, are that in many ways they are the neural input, in a metaphor of course, of the originator. that space is kind of the medium or the tissue that these neuronal endings sit in. I'm answering your question right now, Rufus. So that's it. Actually, that's my answer. I don't want to get too crazy in it. Because if I had pictures, it would certainly be a little bit easier just to see the different shapes of nerve endings. You know, especially the ones that, like I said, there are different shapes for pressure, heat, and kind of cutting pain and other things. Well, as above, so below, I feel is a Hermetic principle. The Telestic principle is as within, so without. And it's not the same thing. The reason it's not the same thing is because the as above, below gets into the heaven fuckery. The heaven and hell or whatever, that, again, that hierarchical shit. And so again, the as above, so below is constantly putting this thing above in a hierarchical type of fashion, rather than as within, so without, which is more hub, wheel-shaped, kind of like the shape of a galaxy. If you notice, there isn't much in the way of pyramidal shapes out there in many things. So I see I've gone almost an hour and a half. I might not go. I might wrap up very shortly. This is kind of like a warming up into a direction that I just want to state. It's going to be a Telestic direction. Based on the Sophianic narrative and the incredible amount of work that John Lamb Lash has put out. The Sophianic narrative is its own wisdom. John Lash is also a human animal, and he also is interpreting things in our environment. The Sophianic narrative is the root and the trunk and the large branches of wisdom. And so, again, I base it on that Sophianic narrative, which was something John Lamb Lash was able to recover. But again, there is the narrative, and there's also the man. They don't diverge constantly, but there will be divergences. And John, anybody who listens to everything that John puts out, will often hear him, will say, "This is to the best of what I can get here." But I have all of us who call themselves Rome, participating in Planetary Tantra, we've already affirmed the Sophianic narrative for ourselves. Again, the ability to do shamanic information gathering enables one to take in an exterior source of information and then check it so that they have their own gnosis of it. So it's not an accepting of a school of thought, but allowing a certain stream of thought, a certain idea posited to be taken in, and then you go check it. And you do that with shamanic work. I would say the proper word for John Lamb Lash, you're calling him crazy, the proper word is mythophrenic. And mythophrenic is just shy of like a full-fledged Kundalini popping, except you're able to stay somewhat operative. I remember when I did my first, when I began my Dakini lunar cycle following a couple of months ago during the very first shift when it went into the constellation of the Bull, and there were two of that shift, of Tara and Bhudevi. And during the first lunar cycle of that was particularly intense. It was my first time getting into it, and again, that tag team is potent. Bhudevi and Tara, man, that was pretty intense. And there was a period during that where I could feel, because back in '88 I had my first spontaneous Kundalini rising, and what a mess that is. Again, when it's spontaneous, and especially before you've kind of really know what's happening, I mean, you're really a psychotic. Not a psychopath, just a psychotic. You have psychosis, and I just define psychosis as a swelling of the psyche, kind of an inflammation of the psyche, but a swelling. And I felt one coming on during my first following of the lunar of the Dakinis. And I stopped it because I needed to stay functioning. So I kind of settled into a light form of mythophrenia, and then that was pleasurable. I had a really great time with those two. As a matter of fact, it was very intense for me. And I remember when they went for a second cycle. The second cycle for me personally, I won't say for everybody, but for me was a little lighter than the first cycle. And I remember when it was finally coming to an end and going into, I think it was going into Indris, I was like, I need a break. And so then we've had Indris, Baivari, Indris, over there is the crab. So we had the twins, the crab, we've been through the lion, we're now in the virgin. And I miss Tara and Bhudevi. That is as much as they kind of batted me about like two cats might bat a ball to each other or something. It was all done in great love, and in great beauty too. I now miss it. It was quite intense, but it was good intensity. Yeah, it was Indris, Vajrayogini, then Baivari, after Tara and Bhudevi. Did I get that right? Come on, I know I have a few other Celestic people here, right? After Tara and Bhudevi, if I recall right, Indris, Vajrayogini, Baivari, and now Sadashi. And if the language I'm speaking isn't conversant to all, it's available. That's why I have links there. And it's about the Dakinis, and so I've chosen to speak to Telestics, to speak that language, and if and I hope other people will find it somewhat interesting, and if they don't, well then Telestic transmissions, there's always the live chat. You can always ignore me and just socialize. I mean, kind of like, there was certain language. I mean, I'm quite sure if I use an abbreviation, okay, I lost transmission there for a second. If I say VV, there are people here who know what I mean when I say VV. VV is a kind of, an abbreviation of the Planetary Tantra sacred name for the planetary animal mother, for Sophia. Yes, Rufus Cat, people are doing both, and again, I see people engaging with each other, and that's good. I don't see anybody. I don't see any. I don't see anything improper happening. I see people getting what they can from both the chat and from the stream, and it's that work. As long as there's no dissension, as long as people aren't, getting on each other's nerves, I don't. It's okay. It's okay to ignore me. It really is. And who, at some point, somebody, I might be using all kinds of terms like, okay, maybe I will go to meta history and find out a lot, or maybe you won't, because it's just like, I'll just hang out. It's all good. It's like taking a hit off of nature's bong. Oh, I don't feel ignored at all, Rufus. I can tell. And again, I'm not. It's not a huge concern of mine. The concern is that there's a good vibe. The vibe is what matters. Because that feeds us. Good energy helps support our immune system, so that it can be properly ruthless. Thank you, Christian. Anybody who might have seen, if I ever do other songs of mine, which I call Modwiz Presents, the artwork for Modwiz Presents was done by Christian Martin. Right, so far I think I've only done it once. I did record a song, I was going to put it up, and then I did the replay. Unfortunately, if I'm going to put songs up, I'm going to listen to them before I put up there, and it's like, I did it late at night also, and my singing sucked. So I didn't put it up. And one of the reasons why I have taken my good mic off the boom mic and put it on a little shorty stand is because I want to use the boom mic for doing some of that stuff. I'm turning my living room into a lot better, nice kind of scenic. A good backdrop. So if I do any recording of some of my songs, I might do them standing up, and I might do it with my little kind of gothic backdrop that I got from myself, and therefore I'm going to need this other mic stand. I only have 2 mic stands, and one of them is currently down in the basement for Butch's banjo, and so I need another one from my own mic. So I'm gonna set it up permanently, and then this is like a little cheesy type of stand thing here, but it works. It even folds up. So yeah, I think I'm close to wrapping this one up. Felt again, I mean, I really did not want to do a live stream tonight. I just didn't. I was cranky. I was cranky as hell. I was very cranky. And part of the reason I was cranky because I had spent too much time early, before warming up for the show. I slept pretty late. So what do? I go on the internet, I listen to a little live stream here and read a little Zero Hedge here and go on to minds.com and the confusion, the lack of aim, the lack of direction depressed me. But something, a voice inside me, said, yes, you will do the stream. And almost right away, almost as soon as the camera started rolling, I started improving. And I've improved greatly over the past hour and 35 minutes. Of course, one of the things I hadn't been doing prior to that, and I've done a lot, is sniffing this wonderful rose. I love a flower in my face. Thank you, Foxadre. I definitely want to develop, get the aim a little better. The most important thing is that, there is a Gnostic teacher. His name is John Lamb Lash, or a Planetary Tantra Gnostic teacher. And so this is, for me, this is like supplementing. This is in support of what he's doing to create conversations based on his work that are staying true to the Sophianic narrative. Will entertain a lot of ideas. There are other things that can be talked about that might not be what he as a teacher would discuss, but those discussions would still hold true and not deviate at all from the Sophianic narrative. Sophianic narrative is very concise, and he did an amazing job. I have confirmation of how good a job he did. And anybody else here, and if any other Telestic who read it and then done their own journeying and turning to VV and asking her, how did John do here? It's like, yeah, he got it right. But there's still a lot. There's plenty to unpack. It's very there's a lot of, it's condensed. There's a lot, and then there's there's a problem with the historical timeline that we're currently given, that I think that certainly deserves a little investigation, provided the aim is not lost. Hello, Lita Blue. So that's the whole thing. I mean, there were certainly things that are not discussed in any kind of depth by John Lamb Lash that I think are worthy of discussion, but I want to be very cautious, because the narrative must not be disturbed, because there's nothing wrong with it. I think there's some things to unpack, but the unpacking comes with other things that are happening, especially in the historical narrative, the one that is taught in schools and the timeline and stuff. There's some fuckery going on there. It doesn't affect the narrative, how we are existing in the narrative. There might be some merit or some fruit in it, but again, it needs to be done cautiously, because especially, I'm not just speaking to Telestics. I'm not just speaking to Planetary Tantra Gnostics. And so going into certain discussions might be very familiar material, in which case that material would suddenly be where the juice is for certain people, and it could create a discussion redirection that would be unbalanced. It would create excess on something that I consider kind of like parallel or maybe even ancillary to the narrative. But unless people are immersed in the narrative, it could very easily get imbalanced. Very easily. And I know that again, the Rome have a profound love for the narrative, for the planetary animal mother, and for John Lamb Lash, who gave us, who was able to restore the narrative. There's a lot of affection and love for John Lamb Lash with the Rome and the Telestics and people who do Planetary Tantra. And I'm very aware of the controversy, because John does address it. Somebody said there's no audio. Is that still the case? Okay, thank you, Matt Finger. I'm not sure what's happening on your end, MC. Hello, Forrest Little. Okay, so obviously, MC, it's on your end. Thank you for all who gave me the okay on the audio, because I was concerned. But now I'm not. Okay, refreshed. Excuse me, I could have muted for that. So yes, so again, I'm just really happy that about the new direction I'm taking here. And I know that those people who are involved in doing Planetary Tantra will certainly appreciate a clearer, a stream that is clean, clean enough to drink. And it's still a fairly small community. At least as far as those who know about me. There are obviously there's a fair, I mean, if every Telestic on the internet were to show up at the stream, it would be huge. But I don't promote, like I'm not even been using tags. I might put a tag in there, but I'm just, if I put in, like, even if I put in the tag Gnostic, somebody who meant well left me a video, and it was Christian Gnosticism. It's that kind of Nag Hammadi, the gospel of this and that, and if that's what they like, I don't want to rag on it, but that's not my kind of Gnostic. And so I'm very, that's why I'm using as Telestic transmissions. I've gotten rid of Can't You Hear Me Gnostic, because anybody who wants to call themselves a Gnostic has the right to do that. If Christian, if your idea of what is Gnostic is the Nag Hammadi texts as they're written, with all of the, kind of Judeo-Christian mysticism thrown in there, then that's why I'm really glad that there's the terms like Telestai or Telestic and Planetary Tantra. So if there's Christian Gnostics, there's Planetary Tantra Gnostics in this way here. But to use a tag like Gnostic, or even in a line, I would consider that could lend to confusion. And the last thing I want to do is contribute to confusion. To be aimed and confusion are not good partners. Oh, Michael Cremo, that's a huge score, Rufus. That's a huge score. One of the questions I have is actually how correct geological scientific dating systems are. I know on the New Earth series, and other people too have said that some dating using tree rings. There definitely can be problems with that. It's very complex. Like when the tree was felled, and even radiocarbon dating. I think what radiocarbon dating is good for is it can certainly let us know that this happened before this. And then there's also how people use data, like what can be radiocarbon data is what looks older, a contamination of newer, or vice versa. So for me, radiocarbon data is good for, like, in other words, being identified that this piece of organic material is older than this piece of organic material. That this piece of organic material existed before this piece of organic material existed. I'm not sure how exact or correct the actual dating is. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying I'm not sure how correct it is. But I still think there's a utility because it allows us to know what came before the other organic piece of material. So that helps us in kind of that kind of stacking, but not. I don't know how useful it is in, like, let us say, timeline, as far as how far or how back in time. Hello, sunshine on Sophia or Sophia. But that's a whole case of where discernment and allowing data sets to sit, but saying there's something here. But until I have a little more, I'm just gonna. I'll take in the data again. This is older than this. Fine. Somebody saying that, well, this happened at. And the other thing I have a problem with is the BC dating. This happened 3,500 BC. Why don't you just say 5,500 years ago? What's with the BC? That's how much clutter is that? And to me, it just it just presences that system. And then, of course, there's the work of Anatoly Fomenko, which, because there is some English writing, but when you look at the actual charts, I've looked at a few of his charts and they're huge, and I mean it's really great work. But all of the notations on these really concise works are in Russian. You can read the dates. The dates are in Arabic numerals, but a lot of this, some of the more subtler information is in Russian. Yeah, BCE, I know, but it's still, what is the whole, even BCE is about BC. It's based, I mean, it's the same date, so it's the same shit. 3,500 BCE is 5,500 years ago. Why can't they just say that? 5,500 years ago. But instead, what do they say? No, in 3,500 BC, who needs that shit? I don't. But when you study the Anatoly Fomenko stuff and when that date might have been, that's when you start seeing some of the fuckery. Because where they placed that marker, where they place that BCE, BC, or AD, is where a lot of the historic timeline fuckery occurs. And so Michael Cremo's work, I think that he's doing. I have no issue at all with his work, but the datings of how many million years ago. What can he do? He can only use the science that geology gives him. That's all he has to go on. So I understand he's going to say this. We found a bicycle wheel that's 3 million years old. Well, it's clearly, if it's in the stratum, if it's in like bedrock, well, that's certainly a while ago. But was it 3 million years ago? But it all points to that the anthropos, the human animal, has been very capable for a long time. If we're going to find technology in bedrock, okay, that means that we've had a presence on this beautiful earth for a good amount of time, and a presence as very capable, as a very capable species. So, but again, he has to rely on geology. Same thing even with John Lamb Lash, when he's using terms of like when the Magi were in northern Iran, and he's working with the accepted historical his story timeline. That's, as a scholar, that's what he learned. We all learned the same line, so it's a common language. And and even if you think, there might be something up with this, until you kind of have something that will actually replace that, it can get sloppy. Like, in other words, it could be wrong, so it could be in error, but what's the correct one? And just a supposition of what is correct could also be error. So at least even if the timeline as we know it is in error, it's an error we're all familiar with, so we can at least have conversations and discussions about it. Religion is a binding. Religion is a thought control system. I mean, there were, again, there's the imposition. They talk about like the goddess religions. They weren't religions. They were ways. They were a Tao, not a Torah. They were a way, not a law. It was being familiar with one's origins and surroundings. Matter of fact, I read a book this week. I'll hold up the book. Put it in my camera so I can make sure that I'm showing it right. It's this book, The Chalice and the Blade by Riane Eisler. And basically she's done some very good research, and it has to do with what the world that is found, through archaeology and other research, the world that is found before the sky gods started and their followers started showing up. The Kurgans from the north and the Hebrews from the south. And the absolute wreckage of what was a beautiful way of living on this earth. And one of the more telling things about it was how the settlements were always built in places where there was good access to water, beautiful scenery. It was built on aesthetics and practicality. And then when you have the blade coming in, that's when castles get built. That's when putting your strategic city on top of some almost inaccessible precipice. That's blade mentality. Chalice mentality was living where it's beautiful, accessible, because we weren't warring with each other. There might have been minor squabbles. It wasn't organized warfare. And you might beat each other with sticks and stuff. You didn't take the same metal that you could be making for farm implements, plows, and whatever else would go to agriculture, and turning them into fucking weapons, shields, and helmets. And she tracks it very well in this book. It makes an excellent case of what this earth was like to live on when we were goddess-based, and how it rapidly degraded when the concept of divinity became a storm or a war god. So anyway, that'll be the conclusion of Telestic transmission. What's the aim of the human species? We need to get aimed. Our aim has misinformation, disinformation, cosmologies of error, history instead of our story, and mystery. I mean, even the modern mystery schools, they're not what the original Eleusinian mystery schools were. They're after the blade. These are after the blade mystery schools. And I was initiated as a master mason. They're an after the blade mystery school. They're not a chalice mystery school. The original mystery schools were chalice mystery schools. All right, so that'll be it. I aim to see beauty. I love that, Fox Dre. Very well. Very good. Very well said. So that's it. So just warmth and affection to you all, and take care of yourselves, and we will reconvene next week, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I usually don't start late. I won't make a habit of it. Tonight just it had to happen that way. Yeah, Matt Finger, I'm using some subtlety here, because those who understand, and to me there's a certain amount of what else could it be. But it's something. The Abrahamic stuff comes a little bit later. That's when it kind of really gets its legs, and becomes really codified. It was simmering. The parts were looking for each other, and building, and there was certainly corruption of the anthropos psychologically, if not genetically as well. Okay, and that's where it can. I put it out one time, but I want to do so. I want to do a lot more looking into Cro-Magnon man. I want to see what the studies, what the science offers. Invariably, there could be a lot of words, but there should be some nuggets of let's just say some, like, shamanic nuggets to travel on. So anyway, I'm really done now. All right, let me hit my stop streaming, and just love to you all. Be well. Oh, better hit the full stop stream.